Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm giving you guys a tier list of all of the Suicide Squad members in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad movie. This movie just came out and this video is going to have spoilers. So if you haven't already seen the movie, like this video and then come back to it later. And before we get into it, if you guys are new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn notifications on so you don't miss any time I upload a video or go live. But without wasting your time, let's get right into it. Ranking or tier listing all of the characters in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. You guys can see the tiers here. We have goated, great, good, mid, and bad. So starting off with Weasel. I think Weasel is a mid character. In the moments that he was on screen, he was funny. I thought the character had good chemistry. I mean, literally he drowned within the first like 10 minutes of us seeing him. Not even like first like 3 minutes of us seeing him. He popped up at the very end of the movie. That was pretty cool. That was a funny joke. I like that part of the movie. But overall, I'll say he's a mid character. I liked his character a little bit, but he was nothing crazy. Next up is Polkadot Man. I'm gonna put him at great. When he died at the end of the movie, I was absolutely heartbroken. I thought David, I think his name is David Dasmalchian or something like that. He is awesome in every single superhero movie role that he's in. He's been in like a bunch of DC properties. He was in Ant-Man. He was in Ant-Man and the Wasp, I think. He's in one of my favorite thriller movies of all time, Prisoners. He's just such a great actor. And this movie did his character such good justice. I'm sad that he went out the way he did, but overall, I thought his character had a cool arc. And they kind of ended it right there, which I felt like they could have made it go on for a little bit longer. But honestly, it kind of makes sense. Like, he had his arc. He kind of redeemed himself. He felt as if he was a hero because he saved a bunch of people and then he dies. Like, it's bittersweet, but I thought it was a cool ending to his character. Next up is gonna be Ratcatcher. I thought Ratcatcher was a pretty great character, but I put her like great above Polkadot Man just because I thought her character actually had so much great development. Honestly, actually, I'm gonna put her at goated. I think she's goated because I think her character has had so much development over this movie. Her backstory was so perfectly placed, which is another thing I really love about this movie, is James Gunn's writing in this movie really solidified characters that we had never seen before, such as Bloodsport, Peacemaker, and Ratcatcher. I think those three characters are so well integrated within the story, and we actually learned so much about them in such a short amount of time that they're on, like, that we've seen them in the DCU as a whole. I feel like these characters, like those three characters that I mentioned before, I feel like we've had them in the DCU for like 3+ projects. Like, they have just as much development as Harley Quinn, but they've only been in one movie. Now, next up, I don't know this guy's name. I think his name's like Javelin dude, but I'm gonna put him at bad. The only real purpose he had in this movie was giving Harley Quinn the javelin that she uses in the rest of the movie. That's cool, but other than that, he really has no purpose. Next up is Bloodsport. I think Bloodsport's obviously goated. I think the storyline with his daughter and his connection to Amanda Waller, I think that whole connection is great. Overall, I think his story is just phenomenal. I honestly kind of hope we get some sort of spin-off with him, maybe him going on like an anthology series like how Mandalorian is, with him just going on a bunch of like marksman type of missions. I think that would be super cool to see. But moving on, probably my favorite character in this movie, I think that it would definitely just be Harley Quinn. Honestly, she is goated. I think she definitely has like one of the slower parts in the movie, but that was kind of when she was with the prince guy, or like the general guy at the time, who she later killed, obviously. Overall, I thought she was a phenomenal character. That section of the movie where she like meets up with that dude and then he tries to marry her and then he kills her. I mean, she kills him and then she escapes. That whole sequence, that entire part of the movie was absolutely awesome. Though it was slow, I thought it was absolutely awesome and it was so much fun. And I love always seeing Harley Quinn on screen. You guys know me, I'm not the craziest fan of Birds of Prey, but I still think Harley Quinn is a phenomenal character, and I think Margot Robbie's the perfect actress to play her. But moving on, another goated character, Peacemaker. Peacemaker is my favorite character in this movie that was introduced in this movie, because technically Harley Quinn, we've seen her before in many projects. We haven't seen Ratcatcher, Bloodsport, or Peacemaker in any other project before, and I think Peacemaker is phenomenal in this movie. I think Peacemaker has the best arc possible. He's basically like he's basically like a hardcore patriot. The way I'd compare these characters is like Flagg would be Chris Evans' Captain America, and then Patriot, like the super patriotic John Walker type of character that's in Falcon Winter Soldier, he's Peacemaker. And then Sam Wilson, we don't really have an actual good guy. Overall, I think that Peacemaker's character is kind of like, he wants to have so much peace that in order to get the peace, there has to be so much of violence and bloodshed. And the way he kills off Rick Flagg's character in the end, in the middle of like the end of the end of the second act of this movie, was absolutely brutal. And then also the small bullet thing with him in Bloodsport, that was also some great dialogue, and that really came back full circle right before he died. And then obviously in the post-credit scene, we know he didn't die because he's in the hospital. Overall, I thought this character had such a great arc, and I can't wait to see him in the Peacemaker show coming out January 2022. Talking about who he killed, let's talk about Rick Flagg. I think Rick Flagg's character is great. I think Rick Flagg's character is going to be one of the more underrated characters in this movie, just because I feel like we didn't get as much development, I guess you could say. His character didn't really have any sort of arc. I also really like the way that they introduced Rick Flagg and Harley Quinn's characters to the Bloodsport's team, I guess you could say, and how they connected all. The connection was done so well, and I think that's one of the perfect parts about this movie. I think the pacing kind of plays into that and how they set everything up, but overall how Rick Flagg's character meets up with Idris Elba's team, or Bloodsport's team, sorry, and how they take down that entire village and they end up being allies. Like, that whole thing is so funny, and that's why I love Rick Flagg's character so much. Moving on, this is probably my most controversial character ranking in the entirety of this movie. That's going to be King Shark. I think King Shark was just good. People have him at great or goated. I think he was just good. I think he was fine. I don't think he was mid. I think his character was cool. He had that emotional moment with the fish where he's like, friends, and then he was also like, hand, and all those moments were cool. They were slightly emotional. He was also like getting gunned down by all of these people in the army, but then ended up coming up and eating a bunch of them. So overall, I thought it was fun. I thought his character was super fun and cool, but overall, I just didn't really get the humor as much as I thought it would, and it just didn't land with me as much. So next up, I don't actually know her name, but it's like the orange lady. I'm gonna put her in bad. She's probably the worst member of that first group that all died off on the beach mostly. She's like she's like the worst character, honestly. Moving on to, I think his name is Black Jacket or something like that. Pete Davidson's character. I don't really know the name of his character, but I'm gonna put him at mid. I thought his character was cool. He had funny moments at the beginning of the movie. Kind of like Weasel. We barely saw him on screen, but that first kill, he was like the first kill in the movie, and that was absolutely epic. It was so much fun. And like right when that happened, I was like, bro, this movie's going insane. When they brutally murdered Pete Davidson's character, I was like, okay, this movie is going to be absolutely insane. So next up is Captain Boomerang. I'm going to put him at bad. He was funny a little bit, but overall I just wasn't the biggest fan of his character. And finally, technically she's not part of the Suicide Squad, but I wanted to add her in here, is Amanda Waller. I think Amanda Waller is a great character. I was really surprised that we didn't see much of her towards the middle of the end of the movie. We only saw her at the very end when she was about to kill Bloodsport, and then she gets like whacked in the head by one of the people that works in the office. Other than that, we didn't really see much of her, and then obviously she was in the beginning, like she was setting up everything a lot. Other than that, we didn't really see her much, but what we got of her, she was an absolute badass. She was so much fun while she was on screen. She was so serious and scary to even look at. Viola Davis brings an absolutely awesome performance. The scene where Idris Elba's Bloodsport gets super mad at her and almost like stabs her in the neck with the pencil, her acting in that scene is absolutely perfect. But with that being said, this is my tier list for the characters of the James Gunn Suicide Squad. But yeah, guys, that's it for this video. If you guys want to do this tier list for yourself, I'll leave the link to it in the description down below. That's for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.